Admiral Hien Wu stood on the bridge of the Earth warship Defiant and watched the stars. Outside the window, dozens of ships floated in the darkness. Some belonged to humans. Most did not. They had come from 15 different worlds, 15 different species, all gathering at Proxima Station for the Coalition Summit. This was supposed to be the meeting that would bring peace to the Outer Rim territories. Hien Wu had been a soldier for 30 years. He remembered the First Contact War, when humanity first met alien species and learned they were not alone in the universe. That war had cost millions of lives before the Treaty of Proxima was signed. For 73 years, that treaty had held. Humans and aliens had learned to live together, to trade, to share space. But peace was always fragile. "Admiral, the diplomatic shuttle is approaching," said Captain Taeyang, a young officer who commanded one of the destroyer escorts. He stood straight, his uniform perfect, but Hien Wu could see the tension in his shoulders. Taeyang did not trust aliens. Many young officers did not. They had grown up hearing stories of the First Contact War. "Let them through," Hien Wu said. He turned to the observation deck where Ambassador Ji-won Park waited. She was humanity's lead negotiator, a woman who believed words could solve any problem. Hien Wu respected her, but he kept his weapons ready. Words only worked when both sides wanted peace. The summit began in the central conference hall of Proxima Station. Hien Wu attended as a military observer, standing in the back while diplomats talked. Ambassador Park sat at the human delegation table with Dr. Haijin, a scientist who studied alien psychology. The Kelrith mediators, ancient beings who had seen 1,000 wars, sat at the center. They were supposed to be neutral. The Vrathin delegation entered last. They were tall, reptilian creatures with scales that gleamed like metal. They controlled 12 star systems through strength and intimidation. Hien Wu had fought them during border skirmishes. They respected only power. The Vrathin spokesman, a warrior named Dralmoth, stood and spoke without waiting for permission. "The territories you humans occupy in the Outer Rim belong to the Vrathin Concordat by ancient law. We claim 4 worlds, New Jeju, Harmony Station, Terra Nova, and Epsilon Prime. You will evacuate these colonies within 20 cycles." Ambassador Park stood calmly. "Those worlds have been human colonies for 40 years. Over 15 million people live there. We are willing to discuss shared access, trade agreements, or territorial exchanges, but we cannot simply abandon our people." Dralmoth's eyes narrowed. "This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. You have 20 cycles to comply." "This is inevitability." The Kelrith mediator raised a hand. "Ancient Vrathin territorial claims do have precedent under galactic law. The human expansion into those regions may have violated existing boundaries." Hien Wu felt his blood go cold. The Kelrith were siding with the Vrathin. Ambassador Park's face remained calm, but her hands tightened on the table edge. "We request time to consult with Earth government," she said carefully. "Surely we can find a solution that respects both species' needs." 20 cycles, Dralmoth repeated. "After that we take what is ours." The Vrathin delegation walked out of the hall. Several other alien species watched silently, calculating their own advantages. For 17 days, Ambassador Park tried everything. She spoke with every delegation, sought allies, proposed compromises. The Kelrith refused to change their position. Most species remained neutral, unwilling to anger the powerful Vrathin. A few expressed sympathy but offered no help. On the 18th day, Vrathin warships appeared above New Jeju. Hien Wu was in his quarters when the emergency alert sounded. He ran to the bridge and saw the tactical display. 30 Vrathin battleships had dropped out of hyperspace directly over the colony world. They were broadcasting a final demand: evacuate in 6 hours or face consequences. "Get me the colonial governor," Hien Wu ordered. Governor Lehman Su appeared on screen. He was an older man who had helped build New Jeju from nothing. Behind him, Hien Wu could see people running, panicking. "Admiral, we can't evacuate 4 million people in 6 hours. It's impossible." "I know," Hien Wu said quietly. "Prepare your shelters." I'm requesting immediate military support from Earth. It will take days for reinforcements to arrive, the governor said. His voice was steady, but his eyes showed fear. Do what you can, Admiral. We'll do the same. The 6 hours passed. The Vrathin did not wait even 1 minute longer. Their ships began orbital bombardment at exactly the deadline. Han Wu watched on long-range sensors as energy weapons struck the colony from space. Cities vanished in flashes of light. The governor's transmission cut off mid-sentence. It took 6 hours to kill 4 million people. Han Wu sat in his command chair and watched humanity's second-largest colony die. His officers stood frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. Captain Taeyang had tears running down his face. Dr. Haijin had left the bridge. Han Wu could hear her vomiting in the corridor. A coded transmission arrived from Earth Command. Han Wu read it twice to make sure he understood. Then he stood and addressed his crew. All ships, prepare for immediate departure. Set condition 1 throughout the fleet. We are going dark. No transmissions, no beacons, full stealth protocols. Sir, what about the summit? Taeyang asked. The summit is over, Han Wu said. Recall all human personnel from Proxima Station. We're leaving. Ambassador Park appeared on his private channel. Her face was pale, her eyes red. Admiral, I tried. I tried everything. I know you did, Han Wu said gently. This is not your failure. They never intended to negotiate. They wanted to show the galaxy they could kill us without consequence. What happens now? Han Wu looked at the orders from Earth Command one more time. Now they learn what consequences really mean. Within 2 hours, every human ship had left Proxima Station. The Coalition species watched them go, expecting either compliance or a limited military response. They had seen species wage war before. Usually it meant battles over territory, negotiations for ceasefire, eventually a new treaty. They did not understand humans yet. Han Wu's fleet jumped into hyperspace, but not toward Earth. They headed into the dark spaces between stars, where sensors could not track them. Across human space, every military installation received the same orders. Defense fleets activated. Reserves were called up. Civilian shipyards began building warships around the clock. And in the shadows, ships that were not supposed to exist began to move. Special operations teams that had been training for decades received their deployment orders. Intelligence networks that had been quietly mapping alien territories for years activated. Han Wu stood alone on his bridge and thought about New Jeju, 4 million people. He had known some of them. Good people who had just wanted to build new lives on a new world. The Vrathin had killed them to make a point. They asked us to negotiate, Han Wu said quietly to the empty bridge. We did. They chose this. They won't get a second chance. The Earth fleet vanished into the darkness, and the galaxy assumed it knew what would happen next. They were wrong. Humanity had negotiated once. They had offered peace, compromise, and coexistence. That offer had been answered with mass murder. The stars were about to discover that humans never negotiate twice. Peace collapsed. The stars discovered humans never negotiate twice. The Kelrith Council Chamber was the oldest structure in known space. Its walls had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic politics. Today, representatives from 15 species gathered in emergency session, and for the first time in memory, the humans were not present to defend themselves. The Vrathin commander Dralmoth stood at the speaker's platform, his scales gleaming with satisfaction. The human response proves our assessment correct. They are a young species, soft and unprepared for real conflict. They have withdrawn to their core worlds. Within a month, they will accept our terms. Several species murmured agreement. The humans had seemed dangerous during the First Contact War, but that was decades ago. Perhaps they had grown comfortable with peace. Perhaps the destruction of New Jeju had broken their will to fight. The Kelrith Prime Mediator, an ancient being named Kursith, raised one crystalline hand. We have received a request for audience from the human government. They are sending an ambassador. Let them come and beg, Dralmoth said, returning to his seat. 3 days later, Ambassador Daehyun entered the council chamber. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. He carried a single data crystal. He did not sit at the petitioner's chair. He stood in the center of the chamber and looked at each species in turn. "I am not here to negotiate," Daehyun said simply. "I am here to deliver a message." He placed the data crystal on the central platform. Holograms activated, displaying a simple text document that would become known throughout the galaxy as the Doctrine of Final Diplomacy. The words were brief. Humanity offered peace. You chose war. We will ensure you never threaten us again. Drowmuth laughed. Empty words from a broken species. Daehyun did not smile. "Commander, where is your home fleet?" The laughter stopped. Drowmuth accessed his communication implant, then his expression changed. "Our defense networks are offline. Some kind of technical malfunction." "Not a malfunction," Daehyun said quietly. "At this moment, every military installation in Vrathine space is experiencing catastrophic systems failure. Your orbital weapons platforms, your shipyards, your command centers, all offline." Across the chamber, species representatives began accessing their own intelligence networks. Reports flooded in. The Vrathine military infrastructure was going dark, system by system, base by base. "Impossible," Drelmuth hissed. "You would need to be inside our networks, inside our territories. Major Yunji and her team have been on your homeworld for 3 weeks," Daehyun said. "Living in your cities. Studying your systems, waiting." The council chamber erupted in chaos. If humans could infiltrate the Vrathine homeworld undetected, what else could they do? What other capabilities had they hidden? On the Vrathine homeworld, Major Yunji led Ghost Company through underground maintenance tunnels beneath the primary military command center. They had entered the planet as merchants, tourists, and workers. The Vrathine security had never suspected. Why would they? Humans were supposed to be soft. "Charges set," reported Sergeant Biora, her hands moving quickly across the explosive controls. 3 minutes to detonation. "Extract team, move out," Yunji ordered. Her team had trained for this mission for 5 years. They knew Vrathine culture, spoke their language, understood their technology. And now they would cripple it. The explosions were precise. No civilians died. But the command center collapsed into rubble, taking with it the central coordination for the entire Vrathine military network. Across Vrathine space, similar operations unfolded. Human stealth ships that had been positioned during the summit now struck. They did not announce themselves. They did not offer warnings. They simply destroyed every military target with surgical precision. Admiral Subin watched from the command ship Retribution. She was supreme commander of all human forces, a woman who had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. On her tactical display, red markers representing Vrathine military assets blinked out one by one. "Fleet Admiral. The Vrathine are broadcasting requests for ceasefire," reported her communications officer. "Denied," Subin said without hesitation. "They had their chance for ceasefire 17 days ago. They answered with 4 million dead civilians." General Minho stood beside her. He commanded special operations and had planned every infiltration, every sabotage mission. "Ma'am, some of our strike teams are reporting Vrathine civilian transports in their operational zones. No military escort. Families fleeing the conflict. Standing orders are to destroy all Vrathine ships," Subin said, then paused. "But we're not them. Let the civilians go. We're dismantling their military, not committing genocide." On the destroyer Horizon, Captain Taeyang faced exactly that situation. His sensors showed a large Vrathine transport, no weapons, heading for neutral space. His orders were clear: no Vrathine ships escaped the combat zone, but his scanners showed life signs. Hundreds of them. Children. Taeyang thought about New Jeju. He thought about the children who had died there, given no chance to flee. His hands hovered over the weapon controls. It would be so easy. So justified, sir? His weapons officer asked. "Escort them to the neutral zone boundary," Taeyang said finally. Scan them for weapons or military personnel. If they're clean, let them go. That's not what I know what the orders say, Taeyang interrupted. But we're better than them. We have to be, or what are we fighting for? The Vrathin transport crossed into neutral space. The crew would later tell their people about the human captain who could have killed them but chose mercy. It was a story that would spread. Back in the council chamber, Kursith attempted to restore order. Ambassador Daehyun, the council demands that humanity cease hostilities immediately and return to negotiations. You demanded? Daehyun's voice was soft but cold. The Vrathin demanded that we abandon our colonies. We attempted to negotiate. They demanded compliance. When we asked for more time, they murdered 4 million people. Where was the council then? Silence filled the chamber. The Kelrith sided with them, Daehyun continued. You cited ancient laws and territorial precedents. You made it clear that galactic law valued Vrathin claims over human lives. So we are showing you what happens outside galactic law. This is madness, a Kelrith mediator protested. You cannot simply destroy a species' entire military capability. Watch us, Daehyun said. For 48 hours the galaxy watched. Human forces demonstrated capabilities that terrified every species. Stealth technology that made ships invisible to all known sensors. Cyber warfare that could take control of enemy systems remotely. Special operations teams that could infiltrate supposedly secure worlds and strike from within, the Vrathin Concordat, which had controlled 12 systems for 3 centuries, saw its military might systematically erased. Human forces struck with such precision that casualties were almost entirely military. They destroyed weapon platforms but left civilian infrastructure untouched. They crippled warships but allowed crew to evacuate first. It was the most frightening kind of warfare, controlled, calculated, and unstoppable. On the 5th day, the Vrathin government transmitted a formal request to negotiate terms of surrender. Fleet. Admiral Subin received the message on the Bridge of Retribution. Around her, officers waited for orders. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Denied, Subin said. They don't get to negotiate now. They had their chance for negotiations. They chose bombardment instead. Ma'am, what are our terms then? Asked her second-in-command. Su-Bin pulled up a document that had been prepared weeks ago, before New Jeju was destroyed. Human intelligence had predicted this moment. They had known the Vrathin would eventually push too far. Unconditional surrender. Complete disarmament. Reduction of military capability to defensive forces only. Permanent human observers in their territory. Reparations to be determined. And a formal acknowledgement of their war crimes. They'll never accept those terms. Then we keep dismantling their military until they do, Subin said. We offered peace once. We tried diplomacy. We negotiated in good faith. They taught us that negotiation is weakness. Now we teach them what strength really means. Ambassador Daehyun left the council chamber with his message delivered. Behind him, 15 species tried to process what they had witnessed. The humans were not the young, naive species they had appeared to be. They had capabilities that rivaled or exceeded the oldest civilizations. And they had a doctrine that was absolutely clear. Humanity would negotiate once, offer peace once, extend trust once. But never twice. As his shuttle departed the Kelrith homeworld, Daehyun looked at the stars and felt no satisfaction. New Jeju was still gone. 4 million people were still dead. But maybe, just maybe, their deaths would ensure it never happened again. The galaxy was learning a lesson. Humanity had learned the hard way. Peace is precious. And those who destroy it face consequences that are certain, absolute, and final. Peace collapsed. The stars discovered humans never negotiate twice. Counselor. Hey, one sat in Earth's council chambers and watched civilization tear itself apart. On every screen, news feeds showed the same thing. Human military forces dismantling the Vrathin Concordat piece by piece. But the real crisis was not in Vrathin space. It was here on Earth where people questioned what their government had become. Counselor, you have to issue a statement, her aide insisted. 3 coalition species are demanding we cease operations. 2 more have withdrawn their ambassadors from Earth. The protests outside are growing. HFY looked out the window at the crowds below. Some held signs supporting the military action. Others called it genocide, even though civilian casualties remained minimal. Humanity was divided, and that division made them vulnerable. Schedule a council session, HFY said. The people deserve answers. 6,000 light-years away, Captain Sujin led her Marines through a captured Vrithian military complex. The base had surrendered without a fight after human cyber warfare disabled every weapon system. Now her job was to secure it and ensure no classified technology remained operational. Captain, we have a situation, Sergeant Wu Jin called from the medical bay. There are wounded Vrithian here. Combat casualties from our initial strike. Their medics abandoned them. Sujin entered the medical bay and saw 30 Vrithian soldiers lying on beds, some with severe injuries. They watched her with eyes full of fear and hatred. These were the enemy. These were the same species that had killed 4 million humans without warning. Get our medical team in here, Sujin ordered. Treat their wounded. Ma'am, our orders are to secure the facility, not provide medical care to enemy combatants. Our orders are to be better than them, Sujin said firmly. Get the medics, now. 2 hours later, human doctors worked alongside their equipment to save Vrithian lives. One young Vrithian soldier, his scales burned from plasma fire, looked up at the human medic treating him with confusion and asked in broken standard, "Why you help?" The medic, a woman named Jiwoo, continued working on his wounds. Because you're wounded? Because we're not monsters. Because this is who we are? Back on Earth, Counselor HFY addressed the United Earth Council and, through broadcast, the entire human species. I know many of you are afraid. You wonder if we have become the very thing we fought against. You see our military destroying another species' capability to wage war, and you question if this is justice or vengeance. She paused, gathering her thoughts. 4 million people died on New Jeju. The Vrithian gave them 6 hours' notice to evacuate a planet of 4 million. It was impossible. They knew it was impossible. They killed those people to prove they could, to show the galaxy that humans could be murdered without consequence. The council chamber was silent. We tried diplomacy, HFY continued. Ambassador Park negotiated for 17 days. She offered compromises, trade agreements, shared territories. The Vrithian refused every offer. The Kelrath Council sided with them. And when we asked for more time, they answered with orbital bombardment. She pulled up casualty reports on the main display. Since military operations began, human forces have eliminated 87% of Vrithian military infrastructure. We have destroyed 400 warships, 200 military bases, and 17 shipyards. Do you know how many Vrithian civilians have died? 43, all from accidents during evacuations we gave them time to conduct. 43 compared to their 4 million. The numbers spoke for themselves. We are not committing genocide, HFY said firmly. We are ensuring it never happens to us again. But the questions did not stop. In homes across Earth and human colonies, families debated. Was this justice? Was it necessary? Where was the line between defense and aggression? Commander Biora sat in Intelligence Command reviewing intercepts from across Coalition space. What she found disturbed her more than any battle report. 2 species, the Threllan Dominion and the Macros, Collective had secretly supported the Vrithian attack on New Jeju. They had provided intelligence on human colony defenses, tactical analysis, and technological support. They were testing us, or explained to her superior. They wanted to see how humanity would respond to aggression. If we had backed down, if we had abandoned our colonies, they were planning their own territorial demands. The evidence was undeniable. Encrypted communications, technology transfers, coordination meetings held months before New Jeju. It was a conspiracy. And now Bara had to decide what to do with this information. She took her findings to Fleet Admiral Su-Bin.Su-Bin read the reports 3 times, her expression growing darker with each pass. They helped plan the murder of 4 million people to test our resolve. Yes, ma'am, and they thought we would not find out. They underestimated our intelligence capabilities, Belra said. Just like they underestimated everything else about us. Su-Bin called an emergency meeting with General Minho and Admiral Hyun-woo. The 3 senior commanders of humanity's military forces gathered in a secure room and faced an impossible question. How far would they go? We could release this information to the coalition, Hyun-woo suggested. Let the galaxy know what these species did. Use diplomatic pressure. Diplomatic pressure did not save New Jeju, Minho countered. If we reveal this and take no action, we show that conspiracy against humanity carries no consequences. If we expand the conflict, we risk turning the entire coalition against us, Hyun-woo argued. We might win militarily, but we would lose everything else. Su-Bin listened to both arguments. The decision was ultimately hers. We show them? We show everyone what happens when you scheme against humanity. But we do it carefully. We prove our case first, make it undeniable, then act. The plan was elegant and brutal. Human intelligence operatives surfaced simultaneously in Threllan and Macro space. They did not hide. They did not run. They walked into government buildings, into media centers, into public squares, and they released the evidence. Documents appeared on networks across both civilizations. Communications between their governments and the Vrathin. Technical specifications they had provided. Meeting records where they discussed testing human resolve and determining acceptable pressure points. The galaxy watched as 2 more species were exposed as conspirators in mass murder. On Earth, scientist Genesio sat in his laboratory surrounded by weapons he had designed. They were terrifying things, precision strike systems that could eliminate targets from across star systems, cyber weapons that could crash entire planetary networks. Stealth technologies that made detection impossible. He had built them as deterrents. As technologies that would prevent war through the certainty of overwhelming response. He had never wanted them used. Dr. Jun SCO, Fleet Admiral Su-Bin, is requesting deployment authorization for the Shadow Protocols. His assistant informed him, Shadow Protocols, the weapons that could cripple the Threllan and Macro's militaries without ever being seen. Jun SCO had written the code himself. He knew exactly what they would do. Tell the Admiral I need to speak with her directly. When Su-Bin's face appeared on his screen, Jun SCO said what he had been thinking for weeks. Admiral, every weapon I held back during the summit, they interpreted as weakness. Every capability we didn't demonstrate, they saw as absence. I designed these systems to prevent war. Instead, their existence encouraged it. I know, Su-Bin said quietly. They looked at our restraint and called it softness. They mistook our preference for peace as inability to wage war. If I authorize deployment, thousands will die. Maybe more. If you don't authorize deployment, millions more will die over the coming years. Every species in the galaxy is watching. They are learning what happens when you attack humanity. Do we teach them it carries minor consequences? Or do we teach them it carries certain consequences? Junicio closed his eyes. He thought about New Jeju, about 4 million people who had trusted that galactic law, that coalition protection and diplomatic solutions would keep them safe. They had been wrong. Authorization granted, he said softly. May we be judged kindly by history? The Threllan Dominion received a message from Fleet Admiral Su-Bin. It was not a demand. It was not a threat. It was simply a calculation, the exact amount of time before their military capability would be reduced to 0. 47 hours, the Macros Collective received the same message. 39 hours for them, both species immediately broadcast appeals to the Coalition Council. Humans were aggressors, they claimed, expanding the war without provocation. The evidence of their conspiracy was fabricated, they insisted, but the evidence was not fabricated. Every document was verified. Every communication was authenticated. The galaxy looked at the Threllan and Macros and saw conspiracy, saw betrayal, saw species who had helped orchestrate mass murder and then lied about it, and the countdown continued. Admiral Young-Soo led the humanitarian relief fleet that followed behind the combat operations. His ships carried food, medical supplies, and engineering equipment. His mission was to help Vrathine civilians cope with their military's collapse. "Sir, why are we helping them?" asked a young ensign. "They killed New Jeju." "Their government killed New Jeju," Young-Soo corrected. "Their military killed New Jeju. These civilians are just people trying to survive. We destroy their military so they can never." Peace collapsed. The stars discovered humans never negotiate. Twice President Eun-ji walked through the New Jeju Memorial alone. 4 million names were carved into black stone walls that stretched for miles. Each name represented a life, a story, a future that would never exist. She ran her fingers over the letters, feeling the weight of every decision she had made since that terrible day. "Ma'am, your security detail is concerned," her assistant said quietly. "Let them be concerned," Yoon-ji replied. "These people died on my watch. I owe them more than just military action." 3 months had passed since New Jeju, the Vrathine Concordat, was broken. The Thrullan Dominion had surrendered. But the Macros Collective still resisted, and on Earth, the cost of certainty was becoming clear. Journalist Dejin stood in front of a captured Vrathine base, her camera drone circling overhead. "This is what victory looks like," she said to her audience. "Behind me, you see a military complex that once housed 10,000 Vrethian soldiers. Human forces destroyed it in 4 hours. 0 civilian casualties, precise, efficient, terrifying." She walked through the ruins. "But look beyond the base. See those buildings? Vrathine civilians live there. Children go to school in that structure. The human military could have destroyed those too. They chose not to. They made a distinction their enemy never made." The Jin's reports were being watched across human space and beyond. She showed both sides, the devastating effectiveness of human military power and the careful restraint that prevented it from becoming slaughter. "The question we must ask ourselves," the Jin continued, "is whether this path leads to lasting peace or just creates new enemies for the future." On the front lines, Sergeant Wu Jin faced that question every day. His unit had been assigned to occupy and secure former Vrathine territory. The orders were clear: prevent military reorganization, protect civilians, maintain order. The reality was more complicated. A group of Vrathine civilians approached his checkpoint. An elderly female carried a child, both thin and weak. "Please," she said in broken standard. "Food, medicine. Our distribution center was military building. You destroyed it." Wu Jin checked his regulations. The building had been a legitimate target used to supply Vrathine forces. But it had also supplied the civilian population. His orders said nothing about feeding the enemy. "Corporal, get the medical kit," Wu Jin ordered, "and break out some of our rations." "Sarge, we're not supposed to—" "I know what we're supposed to do," Wu Jin interrupted. "And I know what we're going to do. We're not letting children starve. Not after what happened on New Jeju. We have to be better than that." He gave them food, medicine, and directions to the humanitarian relief center Admiral Young-Soo had established. The Vrathine female looked at him with confusion and something that might have been gratitude. "Why?" she asked. "We are enemy." "You're not my enemy," Wu Jin said quietly. "Your government was my enemy. Your military killed my people, but you're just someone trying to keep a child alive. I can help with that." Reports of such incidents spread through military channels. Some commanders disciplined soldiers for fraternizing with the enemy. Others quietly encouraged it. The military was learning what politicians already knew. Winning the war was only the first step. Dr. Hai-jin published her analysis from Earth, and it shook both military and civilian leadership. She had spent months studying Vrathine culture, psychology, and history. "The Vrathine are a hierarchical species," her report stated. "They respect strength, dominance, and clear power structures. In their culture, showing weakness invites attack. Mercy is often interpreted as inability rather than choice. She included intercepts of Vrathine communications from before New Jeju. Their strategists had debated human psychology. Many concluded that humanity's diplomatic approach was evidence of weakness. That humans avoided conflict because they could not wage it effectively. They misread us, Haijin wrote. We sought peace because we valued it, not because we feared war. That misunderstanding cost 4 million human lives, and it cost them their civilization's future. The report included a painful conclusion. By their cultural framework, our initial restraint was not morally superior. It was incomprehensible. We played by rules they exploited. The question we face now is whether we can build a lasting peace with species who interpret kindness as weakness. In the Coalition Council, the debate raged. The Kelrath had issued an ultimatum. Humanity must cease all military operations against the Macros Collective or face coalition sanctions. Possibly military intervention. Ambassador G1 Park had returned to coalition space. But she was not the same woman who had negotiated at Proxima Station. She had watched her diplomatic efforts fail. She had seen 4 million people die because words were not enough. The coalition wants us to stop, she said to President Unji over secure transmission. They're threatening everything from trade embargoes to military action. What do you recommend? Unji asked. Park was quiet for a long moment. 3 months ago, I would have said we should compromise. Find a diplomatic solution. Show the galaxy we're reasonable? She paused. But I've learned something. The galaxy doesn't respect reasonable. They respect strength. If we stop now, before the Macros Collective has faced consequences, we tell every species that conspiracy against humanity only fails if you get caught early. So we continue? We finish what we started. But we make the coalition choose. Either they enforce their own laws against species who orchestrate mass murder, or they step aside and let us protect ourselves. Admiral Hyun Woo presented the plan to the Military Council. It was bold, risky, and might determine humanity's future in the galaxy. We go directly to the Kelrath Council, he explained. We broadcast our evidence of Macros conspiracy. We show every communication, every planning session, every piece of support they gave the Vrathine. Then we ask a simple question, will you punish them or will we? The Kelrath will see it as a threat, General Minho pointed out. It is a threat, Hyun Woo said flatly. But it's also a choice. We're giving them the opportunity to prove their system works. If they won't enforce their own laws, if coalition justice is meaningless, then we have no reason to follow it. President Unji made her decision. Send Ambassador Park with the proposal. Let's see if the coalition has any integrity left. The Thrullan Dominion formally surrendered after 42 days of operations. Their government accepted every human demand. 80% reduction in military capability. Permanent monitoring stations in their territory. Public acknowledgement of their role in the New Jeju massacre. And reparations to be paid over 50 years, the Thrullan. Premier appeared before the Coalition Council and issued a statement that shocked the galaxy. We underestimated humanity. We saw their desire for peace as weakness. We conspired against them because we thought they lacked the will to respond. We were wrong. The price of that error has been devastating. He looked directly at the camera, speaking to every species in the coalition. Learn from our mistake. Humanity negotiates once. They offer peace once. They extend trust once. If you betray that, if you mistake their restraint for weakness, you will face consequences that are absolute and certain. It was the most effective deterrent message humanity could have hoped for. Delivered by a former enemy, but the Macros Collective refused to surrender. Their Queen Regent, Talora, broadcast her own message. We will not bow to human tyranny. We will not accept occupation. The coalition must act to stop this aggression before humanity becomes the new galactic threat. Talora had support. Several species feared humanity's demonstrated power. If humans could dismantle 3 major civilizations in 3 months, what could they do to everyone else? The Coalition Council met to debate intervention. Ambassador Park stood before them with humanity's final offer. You established a system of galactic law, she said. You created rules for how species should interact, resolve disputes, and maintain peace. The Vrathin violated those rules when they destroyed New Jeju without declaration of war, without provocation, and without mercy. You did nothing. She pulled up the evidence of the conspiracy. The Threlin and Macros helped plan that attack. They provided material support. They are accessories to the murder of 4 million civilians. By your own laws, they should face prosecution. Kursith, the Kelrith mediator, responded carefully. The Coalition is investigating these allegations. Investigating? Park's voice was ice. We gave you proof 3 months ago. We showed you communications, technology transfers, planning meetings. You've done nothing because the Threlin and Macros are powerful, and you fear confronting them. The Coalition must maintain unity. The Coalition must maintain justice, Park interrupted. Or it means nothing. We offered to work within your system. We negotiated. We trusted your process. You sided with our murderers. So now we enforce justice ourselves. She pulled up tactical displays showing Macros military installations. Here's what happens next. In 72 hours, the Macros Collective's military capability will be reduced to defensive forces only. We will ensure they never threaten us again. You have 3 choices. The council chamber fell silent. First choice, you enforce your own laws. You prosecute the Macros leadership for conspiracy to commit genocide. You prove your system works. If you do this, we calm. Peace collapsed. The stars discovered humans never negotiate twice 6 months after New Jeju. The galaxy looked different. Admiral Haiyan Wu stood on the observation deck of Proxima Station and watched ships from a dozen species dock peacefully. But this was not the same peace that had existed before. This was peace built on understanding, not hope. The Macros Collective had collapsed not from human military action, but from within. When Queen Regent Talora's own people discovered the full extent of her conspiracy, they removed her from power. The new Macros Council had been the ones to request negotiations. They understood what Talora had not. Humanity would finish what it started. Haiyan Wu remembered receiving that transmission. The new Macros leaders had not tried to justify their predecessors' actions. They simply acknowledged the truth and asked what price humanity demanded for peace. The price had been high. Military reduction, monitoring stations, reparations, and public acknowledgement of guilt. The Macros had accepted every term without argument. They had learned what the Threlin learned, what the Vrathin learned. Humans negotiate once. Captain Taeyang commanded reconstruction efforts in former Vrathin territory. His ships worked alongside Vrathin engineers to rebuild infrastructure, but only civilian infrastructure. The military shipyards would never be rebuilt. The weapons platforms would never be replaced. Captain, the local governor wants to meet with you, his first officer reported. Governor Kalsith was young for a Vrathin, part of a new generation that had grown up watching their civilization's military power crumble in weeks. He approached Taeyang with neither pride nor servitude, just tired pragmatism. We need medical equipment, Kalsith said. The human relief supplies helped, but we need sustainable solutions. Our own production capacity was destroyed. Because it was in military facilities, Taeyang said. Yes, our government made everything part of the war machine. Now we pay the price. Kalsith looked out at the construction site. Your people are helping rebuild our cities? Why? Taeyang had asked himself the same question many times. Because destruction was necessary. Cruelty is not. We destroyed your military so you could never threaten us again. But we're not monsters? We don't make civilians suffer for their government's crimes. 4 million humans suffered, Kalsith said quietly. Yes, and that's why this will never happen again. Not from your people? Not from anyone. Taeyang pulled up a list of medical suppliers. I'll authorize the purchase request, but the equipment goes to civilian hospitals only. We verify that. Understood, and, thank you. Taeyang watched the young governor leave. These were the Vrathin who would inherit what remained of their civilization. They had not ordered the attack on New Jeju, many had not even supported it. But they carried its consequences. On Earth, President Unji faced the fight of her political life. Elections were coming, and journalist The Jin had announced her candidacy against the sitting president. The campaign had become a referendum on everything that happened after New Jeju. President Unji authorized military actions that dismantled 3 civilizations, The Jin said during a debate. Yes, we faced aggression. Yes, New Jeju was a horrific crime. But did our response go too far? Did we become the very thing we fought against? Unji responded carefully. We became what we needed to be to survive. The galaxy respects strength, not mercy. We showed both. We destroyed military threats with precision and efficiency. We protected civilians even while fighting their governments. We offered surrender terms that were harsh but fair. And we proved that humanity will defend itself when no one else will, but at what cost to our values? The Jin pressed. We're a species that prides itself on diplomacy, on peaceful coexistence. We threw that away. We didn't throw it away, Yinji said firmly. We offered it. We negotiated for 17 days. The Vrathin answered with bombardment. Should we have offered again? Should we have asked nicely for them to please not murder us? The audience was split. Some applauded Yunji's strength. Others agreed with The Jin's concerns. Councillor Haewon had endorsed The Jin, believing humanity needed to find its moral center again. Admiral Hyun-woo had quietly supported Unji, knowing that strength preserved peace. Ambassador Ji-won Park watched the debate from her quarters on Proxima Station and felt the weight of both arguments. She had dedicated her life to diplomacy. She still believed words could solve problems. But she also knew that some people only understood force. The Coalition Council had made their choice. After 72 hours of intense debate, they had agreed to prosecute conspirators in the New Jeju attack under galactic law. It was unprecedented. The Coalition had never held powerful species accountable before. Kursith had delivered the announcement personally. The Coalition recognizes that justice delayed is justice denied. Those who conspired to commit genocide will face trial. Those who supported such actions will face consequences. It was not perfect justice. It was not fast justice. But it was justice, and it came from the Coalition itself. Humanity had forced the galaxy to choose between its principles and its comfort. The galaxy chose principles. Park began negotiating the peace protocol, a new framework for galactic interaction. It included clear definitions of aggression, automatic consequences for violations, and accountability measures that had teeth. You're changing the entire structure of coalition law, Kursith said during one session. I'm making it mean something, Park replied. Laws that are not enforced are just suggestions. The galaxy needs to understand that actions have consequences. All actions. For all species. Dr. Haijin published her final analysis of the conflict. It was required reading in schools across human space and many alien civilizations. Humanity learned a painful lesson, she wrote. We entered the galactic community believing that rationality, diplomacy, and good faith would be enough. We were wrong. Different species have different values, different communication styles, different interpretations of the same actions. The Vafin saw our diplomatic efforts as weakness. They tested us. They found our limit. And they paid a price that will echo through history. But the real lesson is more complex. Strength without restraint is tyranny. Restraint without strength is vulnerability. Humanity found a balance. We negotiate sincerely. We seek peaceful solutions genuinely, but we respond to aggression with absolute certainty. This is not the galaxy we wanted. But it is the galaxy we have. And we have adapted to survive in it. 3 years after New Jeju, Admiral Hyun-woo retired. He was 60 years old and had spent 40 of those years in military service. He had fought in the First Contact War as a young officer. He had commanded the response to New Jeju as an admiral. Now he was done. He visited the New Jeju Memorial on his last day in uniform. 4 million names. He had avenged them, but he could not bring them back. Sir? A young lieutenant approached. She wore the uniform of the new generation, officers who had grown up after New Jeju. I'm being assigned to the Vrathin observation post. Any advice? Hyun-woo looked at her and saw himself decades ago, young and certain of simple answers. Remember why we're there. Not to punish. Not to conquer. To ensure it never happens again. The Vrathian people didn't attack us. Their government did. Help them build something better. Yes, sir, and thank you for what you did. Hyun-woo shook his head. I did what was necessary. That doesn't make it good. Remember that. Necessary and good are not the same thing. He left the memorial and returned to civilian life, carrying the weight of 4 million ghosts and the certainty that he had done what needed to be done. 5 years after New Jeju, a new coalition summit convened. Ambassador Park sat at the human delegation table, surrounded by representatives from 24 species. New species had joined the coalition, attracted by the reform structure that actually enforced its own rules. A territorial dispute arose between the Kelvin Republic and the Doran Collective. Both species claimed the same mineral-rich asteroid belt. Tensions escalated. Ships were positioned. It looked like it might lead to conflict. Then both species stopped and looked at the human delegation. A Kelvin ambassador asked, "How would humans resolve this?" Park smiled sadly. "We would talk. We would find what each side truly needs. We would look for solutions where both species benefit. We would compromise, negotiate, and build an agreement that respects everyone's interests." She paused, making sure they understood. "And we would remember that every conversation is precious, because if diplomacy fails, the consequences are certain and terrible for everyone involved." The Kelvin and Doran representatives looked at each other. They had both watched what happened after New Jeju. They had seen species with massive militaries reduced to defensive forces. They had learned what happened when negotiation failed. They negotiated. They compromised. They found a solution because the galaxy had learned humanity's lesson. Peace is maintained by those willing to defend it. And humanity defends peace with absolute certainty. Sergeant Woo Jin, now a lieutenant, served at the human observation post on the Vrathin homeworld. He worked with Vrathian security forces, training them in defensive tactics. His counterpart was a young Vrathian officer named Tekmar. "Your people destroyed us," Tekmar said one day during training. It was not an accusation, just a fact. "Your government attacked us first," Woo Jin replied.